twisting my melons, man.
Callthecops. Selby.
Yes, Mr. Terminator X.
Our second show.
Well, it's not a show because it has second YouTube.
All right, our second YouTube adventure.
Show. Yeah, it's a bit of a show.
And we don't have guests, we just have our pals.
Imagine the exclusives we could pull out the bag here.
Well,
we know everyone's dark secrets.
Yeah, we know a few dark secrets. Yeah.
No, we don't really. You know what I mean?
We do.
I know your dark secrets.
Well, I know. Yeah, and I haven't got any dark. Well, I have. Yeah, I've got one. Not dark, but
yeah, I know.
Dark.
You got no skeletons anyway.
No skeletons. No. You know, just.
I don't think I have. None I can remember.
You've got loads, man.
No,
loads.
I'm an open book, mate.
Open and shut book case. Anyway, so week 2.
Yeah.
Who we got this week? One of our mates, our pals, our godfather.
Yeah.
Godfather McGee.
Mr. Alan McGee.
Alan McGee. Now, Alan's got
rock and roll red shirt. He's got stories.
Alan's got stories. Alan's got shit on everybody.
Yeah. He's got, you know what? He's got more stories than we have.
He's got more shit on everybody than me and you put together.
Yeah. And what I love about him, you know what I mean? He started life homeless, you know what I mean? And goes to the top, so it just goes to show what
Alan's
can be
real.
done.
He was born homeless.
Real. Well, he was born in Glasgow.
He was born on the street in Glasgow, homeless.
Yeah, man.
And hard.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's real, man.
He is.
Man. He's a real dude.
Hey, man.
And he's our mate.
Yeah.
He's not a guest. He's not a guest, he's our mate.
And manager now.
And manager. He's our manager. And my best mate. He's my best mate more than your best mate.
Well, I'm not arguing over whose best mate he is.
Well, he's my best mate.
I know he's...
Right. Show 2, B. Show 2.
Show 2, man. Okay.
Big round there. Musical round.
And what we're doing?
Well, we're having a little bit of a bunny. Well, actually, first of all, we've got to put things straight. That me and you, you know, we've been bubbled.
Well, you know what they call that? Bubble trouble.
Bubble trouble.
We're bubble trouble.
We're the Bubble Brothers. So we've been bubbled, right, which actually means someone's grassed on us for sitting next to each other. But I've got to make this known that me and Beswick have been in our own bubble for the last 40 years. So, you know, we're in our bubble, so we're fine. But as you can see, our guest, who's, you know, 25 metres away, Alan McGee. Hey. Oh, on Alan. Now, Alan is our mate.
And manager now.
And manager. And, you know...
rock and roll legend.
Rock and roll legend, yeah. Do sort of nonce around with all the Politicians. You know, back in the day, Tony Blair's,
yeah,
and all that crew, and discovered Oasis. Yeah,
managed a whole heap of other bands. What other bands were
Primal Scream, Bobby Gillespie, and all that lot.
What's that other Scottish band called as well?
Fan Club.
Yeah.
So it's Alan. Over to Alan. Alan, back in the day, had a big ginger fro.
The first time I saw you guys, I met you in New York at New Music Seminar, 1987.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that bird? Alita.
How can you remember her name?
Because she's a pint and a half. Alita. Pint and a half. That's how I remember the name. I don't remember names, but some name where it's like...
Well, you know what? I'll never forget now.
What was that bird you brought back from New York? You run factory offices.
Oh, I can't remember her name.
There was a girl that run factory offices in New York, and he brought her back.
Yeah, she done me head in.
Brought her back to Salford.
Yeah. She's always saying
expecting, like, you know, because you know in America, right, indie artists, they've all got these massive big estates, you know, with 18 acres and all that sort of thing. So indie artists, so it was 1986, comes back to a council flat in Little Oulton on Kenyon Way.
Yeah, well,
this bird's going, what the fuck? Well, the same thing happened there with Clint Boone. Clint Boone brought this bird back from America, you know, expecting, because you're an indie band, you know, how they earn over there. And you know, same thing happened there, you know. Went back to America and put these adverts in the press, don't fuck off with any of these Manchester bands. You'll end up in the crack den on the council estate.
You ain't got a pot to piss in.
we were all like coming out of the Mary Chain thing. We were all decked out in black leather and blah,
Winkle
blah, blah.
picker boots and all that.
And you lot showed up in parkas and flares, and we were like, and it was cool, but we were like, God, they don't care.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that when I met you, I was like, God.
Well, we looked like we didn't care, but I mean, the thing is, as fucking young kids, that's all we had was fashion.
Yeah.
You know that. You know, at the end of the day, you know, it's like you walk into somewhere and anybody will just see, you know, fucking scruffy jeans and a pair of trainers. Who knows what? Knows that them trainers that you've got on your feet, you know, are 200 quid, and them fucking jeans you've got, you know, are,
well,
you know, 150 quid, and that jacket you've got on's that. You know, even though we've been described as scruffy fuckers for wearing Stone Island back in 1983. You know, 86, New York was still pretty much raw. It was like, you know, the 70s and that. It was still a raw, you know. He hadn't done his job, fucking Trump's mate, Mayor Giuliani. You know, I mean, he hadn't cleaned it up and give everybody 100 years for having a joint and everything. So it was still a raw place. So when we jumped in, we said, take us to the fucking place, you know, to score. Girl shit herself, right? You know, because usually they'll get off and
The walks
ask for
are
weed.
so far, didn't they?
Well, you know, they'll get you some weed and all that lot. But when it comes to, you know, crack or, you know, Class A's, it's like, you know, coke was okay, you know, but this was like, no. So she said, I'll take you to the border, if you know what I mean, to the beginning of where the hood is. So she dropped us off there, and me and him fucking discovered it. And all of a sudden, everybody you heard or spoke to sounded like DMX. Motherfucker! You know what I mean? So we knew we was in the right place. And we met this guy who actually turned out to be an ex-Vietnam vet, right? And he took us to his crib. And he gave us our first hit of crack. I went first, and he's going, what's it like, X? What's it like? What's it like? And I'm going, fucking hell, I'm going up. Proper dare gear, going up. Right? And then, boom. And I turned, I said, fucking, this is just fucking wild. So then he had to go, right? And then this guy, he was a black guy, Vietnam vet thing, right? Said ta-ra to him, went out of his crib, and then he'd sold us a little bit. So we'd smoked that before we got out. I think he gave us something to smoke it on or something, didn't he?
Yeah, I can't remember.
But we smoked that before we got out, and then we wondered ourselves further in. And that's when it all went a bit fucking wrong. But we got some gear, and that was our first experience.
Yeah,
on that.
well, I remember
but we actually went looking for it because of what was in the
because
newspapers.
of the sun. But I remember
Well,
we
not
got
just the sun, all the papers.
no, but it
started.
turned up again because we ended up getting in a bit of a heated discussion
You
with
mean
some
the one where
Puerto
he stuck the
Ricans.
gun in my eye socket?
And he turned up and gave us a dime bag and told us to get off.
That was it. The same dude, right? We got into this fucking altercation, right? Because they thought one of us was spitting when we was talking.
Probably.
Right?
We wanted the news, not the weather. I should say.
What?
They wanted the news, not the weather.
Yeah. So, you know, and you know, I'm not going to go, well, it's not me spitting, it's him. So the next thing, this fucking kid pulls out this DMX-sounding geezer, sticks his fucking gun in my eyeball, and then, you know, fucking... Anyway, this fucking Vietnam vet appeared like Jesus from nowhere. And he just went, no, motherfucker, whoa. Sorted it out in sign language, told him to do one, these kids are cool. And through him, you know, my brains went all over the fucking place. And then we did one. And then we went back to the hotel, the same hotel where Sid Vicious killed Nancy.
Chelsea Hotel. Yeah.
And it was still that room back then in 1986 was still, you know, all cornered off and stuff, you know, from no one went in that room. So we went back to the Chelsea, got high, and then I woke up the next morning, and it went in my head what went on, and I went, fucking hell, whoa, nearly dead. I mean, I know I've read your book, Al, but tell us, you know, I love it how you and your crew started out and came to London. So can you tell us that?
Well, I was in a band with Innes for Primal Scream. I was in his band, and I was the bass player. And then Innes said to me...
How old was you at this time?
I joined his band when I was 16.
Right.
And then we got to about 18 or 19. I think I turned 19, he was 17. And it was called The Drains.
What, the band?
Yeah. And then Innes said to me, if you don't come to London, you're out the band. So
Fair enough.
And I just start. I mean, because I was like literally a late developer. I'd just got a girlfriend. I was 18, and I'd just finally started having sex. Right.
But you had pubes, though.
Yeah, I had pubes. Right. Everything was working. It was just not working very often. Right. And then I went to London, and we and Innes, we came down, and it was why we got lucky, Shaun, was that we were homeless, like you were saying. We came down and we were sleeping on the roof of Boots the Chemist, and we should have by rights, after 10 days, had to go home. But then I went into this pub in Clapham, I think it was, and this really good looking punk girl. This would be like June 1980. I'd be 19, and I started chatting her up, and then she told me she had a squat. So I went, oh, like, tried it on, can I come back?
All them London kids had squats, didn't they?
Everyone used to live in squats.
Squats.
I was brilliant. And she went, well, you can come back, but not for that, but yeah, I'll let you stay there. And for the next 6 months, me
Did
and
she
Innes...
put your brains out?
No. We never
Did
went
she give
on
you
it.
drugs?
Oh, she was mad for the drugs, yeah. But I was like...
So you didn't care that she didn't put your brain out?
No, we had a good time. But the truth is, that's how we get down to London, because once we got the squat, we were like, oh, this is going to work out. So we stayed. It was Glasgow City of Culture for that year. So
Is that a joke?
No. I know it was.
Sorry, Glasgow, I couldn't.
And it was the first City of Culture, and the pubs were open for 21 hours out of 24 hours. So I was like, all right. So I go on up the stairs. No, I didn't go up the stairs. I go on in at first, and Liam is about 20, and he's lying back in a chair in a Man City brilliant tracksuit. And I thought, because you remember all the drug dealers back in the day were good looking and the people in the bands weren't they? And I looked at him, right, and I went, he's the drug dealer, right? And Bonehead was standing next to him, and I went, that's the singer, right? So that's what I thought was going to go down. About an hour and a half later, they were bumming their way onto the gig. And I basically said to the King Tuts, just let them play, blah, blah, blah. Not thinking they'd be any good, just let's not have any kick-off, because I had two little bands there. And I went on up the stairs about... That
was when Liam was also looking like George Best in his
he looked amazing. And so I go on up, and it's about an hour and a half later, and they're playing Rock and Roll Star, Up in the Sky, Bring It On Down, and then they do the Beatles one. And I was like, fucking hell, that's great. And I went up to Coyley. Do you remember Mark Coyle? I said to Coyley, who's the manager? No manager. I went, all right. I said, who's the boss? And he went, no. And I went, go and get Noel. And then Noel trots down this wee guy with a tape. And he was, all right. I was like, I want to sign you. And he didn't know who I was. And he went, although he had met me about 5 years before with Debbie, years ago.
I'm sure Noel would have fucking knew
when I said, I said, oh, do you want a deal? And he went, who was? And I went, Creation. And then I think he went, oh, it's McGee. Apart from having the talent, was the friction between these two people. Do you know what I mean? And
brothers.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got it with Paul. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's part of the...
Well, they got it in Spandy Bally and Kinks. Brothers in bands, it's one of those things, isn't it?
And I think that thing, they both could do it individually, they're proving that. But it's like, that's why that band was great, because of that. You know what I mean?
Chemistry between the brothers.
And plus the fact that, they was the only two that did look like rock stars and not electricians or market traders or plumbers, so...
Oh, they looked great,
You know what I learned, though, with brothers in bands? Never get involved in... I tried breaking you and your kid up once and nearly ended up getting my thumb bit up through my stomach. I thought, I'm never going to get involved in that shit again, you know what I mean?
Do you remember that one we had when we was in the Amazon jungle thing? With me and our kid, when we was doing that show? But you remember when our kid wouldn't take his shoes off and get in the stream and it kicked off?
Yeah,
we ended up showing our bellies who had the biggest No, your belly's fucking fatter than my belly.
That's a funny
argument. That was hilarious, that one,
belly was the biggest?
Whose belly, Who had the biggest beer belly? Okay, now. mean, look, if you're in a band with your brother or your dad, I mean, it's you're going to get bust-ups, aren't you? So me and our Paul. I mean, the thing about our Paul was, he's, in our kid's head, he was, the most. He was the important guy, and he was the guy that got the band together, and he, So, our kid didn't like. The fact that suddenly I became the person, getting the attention because I'm a front man. So, but that's just how it is, brothers in bands or...
Brotherly love
it kicks off, doesn't it? I mean, and like you say, that's part of what...
It's part of the genius there.
Yeah.
I mean, when it's great, that's why it's good half the time, do you know what I mean? And I think you guys had it, I think the Reeds... And the Mary Chain had it, the Oasis had it.
Well, look at the Kinks, the Davises. I mean,
the Bee Gees.
I mean, if you ask me now, while they're still around, what band would you love to see get back together and do one more show? It'd be the Kinks. Yeah. Fucking hell.
Yeah, I think a lot of their
both the
fans
brothers
have
are
died
still
now,
alive.
though, the Kinks fan.
Kinks fans have died.
Well, most of them have.
No, mate, the Kinks are getting just like, are getting
well,
daily.
Most of our fans are dying. No,
you know what? It's like...
at that age, you know what I mean?
I wouldn't say that, Bez. I mean, it's like saying, like, fans of the Rolling Stones. They've not just got the original fans from back in the 60s. They got fans that they picked up in the 70s, 80s, 90s,
well, they're the Rolling Stones,
well, that's how it works with bands, I mean, look at us when we was young. We didn't exactly like what was going on in the top 20, so we looked for people like the Velvet Underground, and other bands like that did something for us. So I mean, there's always a young lot that will get on and discover these bands instead of going for the crap that's pumped out in the charts. And that's how it passes on. I mean, us going listening to Captain Beefheart and all sorts of stuff. That wasn't on Top of the Pops. You find these bands because you want something different, and that always. It carries on. I mean, one of the whole points in doing, the TV that we do now is you pick up new fans. I mean, the great thing is now, you go and do one of these TV shows, where we drive off in a tank or an ambulance and something, and the kids go, boom, 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 oh, right, okay, and they'll download that album while they're still watching the credits. So, that's how you pick up new, people into your music. Well, you don't go out really and make you relevant. It's a bit of, it's half a dozen of one and,
For us, I think it's because of our involvement with Factory Records, because that's like a legendary label. And
that's one of the factors, I mean,
because of our
we also do,
Factory.
we go on and we do these, I mean, like now, I mean, one of the, it's like you look at something like The Voice, and there's millions of kids when Tom Jones went and did The Voice that didn't know who Tom Jones was, so Tom Jones is on there giving his opinion. The same thing again. Let's look at him. Let's listen to it. And when you hear the music, it's amazing. So I mean, it just picks up.
Did he steal some lyrics off there?
I've ripped lyrics off everybody.
Yeah,
anyone that's been worth. I mean, and don't forget that's
it's not unusual.
I mean, but that's how it's been.
Is it delightful that?
No, it was Oasis. I mean, that was a funny thing. The B-side.
Oasis,
I think it was called Oasis before Oasis was in existence. Alan, tell us about managing the Libertines. Because I didn't even remember you managing them.
Well, I didn't even know you managed them.
I managed them for about 3 or 4 years. But it's like, well, what happened with that was I didn't really want to initially do it.
Well, you wouldn't, would you?
No, and I'd heard all the terrible stuff. I'd come out the back of Oasis. I'd done the Pop Tones thing. I was managing a few bands, like the Hives and stuff like that. And I was like, I was doing all right. And then basically I was in New York and Pete was coming out. Pete had burgled Carol's flat.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I knew Pete because he'd asked me a bit of advice about stuff, and so I was kind of friends with him, right? And
Did he end up in jail for that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we
yeah.
said. How can the fuck, you know, no matter what, how can you grass
Your mate
on
up.
your mate, you know, whether you're falling out or whatever, you're grassing and putting him in fucking
I think
jail.
over some keyboard.
Go on, sorry.
so anyway, so what happened is anyway, I'm in New York doing music. Wait, I don't think I've ever told you this, but I'm friends with Joaquin Phoenix, you know, the film star.
Yeah.
Right. So I was with Joaquin in New York. I was doing music.
Rivers' brother.
Yeah. And I got the call, come back. And I didn't want to come back because I was enjoying myself in New York. I didn't actually want to manage them. Eventually, I come back and I have to meet them that Saturday because they both want me to manage a band at the Landmark Hotel. And I meet them.
Landmark in London.
Yeah, man.
I used to live in there.
Yeah, Britpop Hotel, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like...
Is that opposite Hyde Park, is it?
It's near it, yeah. I spent fucking... You
I think we all did, Shaun.
Yeah. I mean, the thing he used to turn up in his big lorry. Boxer.
Yeah.
Fucking
Eubank.
Eubank.
He was there all the time.
Yeah.
So
It'd be me and fucking Eubank sat in the bar.
I love him. So anyway, so I go into this meeting to tell them, lovely guys, but I don't want to manage your band. And because they're so charming, I came out of the meeting managing the Libertines. So I had no real plan. So I thought, I tell you what I'll do. I'll take them to Wales, to my house, right, where I just live up the road from Bez, and I'll take them to that house and set them up there for 2 or 3 weeks, and they can write the second album. So anyway, we go down there. This is the first day of me managing them. We drive to Wales, and I'm going to stay the first week just to make sure that they're not going to beat each other up, basically, right? So it gets to about the Wednesday night, and they're playing, I think they were playing Don't Look Back in Anger, the Oasis song. And I was going, oh, that's nice, went to sleep. And the next day I go down to the couch and I'm on the phone to the office, and I hear somebody coming down the stairs. And I go like that, and out of my peripheral vision, it looks as if somebody has put tomato ketchup over their head, right? So I go like that, and it's Carol Barat covered in blood, with his eye hanging out on the optical nerve, twitching, right? So I get a baby wipe, because Charlie was young, and I put the eye back in the head.
I've done that.
So I'm walking about with Carol Barat, and I'm phoning her, and it goes, come and get me. So the little farmer at the bottom of the hill comes to get me, takes me to one hospital, and I go into the hospital, and I'm looking, and they'll have a look at the eye, and they go, he's going to lose his eye. Do you know what I mean? You've got to go to Hereford Hospital. So we went to Brecon Hospital, and they went, he's going to lose his eye. Go to Hereford Hospital. So we go on over to Hereford Hospital, and I'm now starting to realise this is really serious. And he's pissed out his tits, right? And I'm secretly thinking, I wonder if Peter done that to him. Do you know what I mean? I'm like that. So anyway, we go on in to the surgeon. Eventually, me and Carol, and he looks at us and he goes to me, "What have you done to your boyfriend?" And I went, "He's not my boyfriend. He's my artist." But it looked a bit dodgy because I was about 42, a bit overweight, and there's this beautiful young pop star, right, with his eye literally hanging out. So anyway, eventually I persuade them that I haven't done that.
So he thought he was Russell Grant?
Yeah, he thought he was...
Not Russell Grant, he was the one that does the horoscopes. Russell Grant, yeah.
So basically they put Carol under the operation, and he come out and they've sewed his eye back in. 6 hours, they save his eye, but they've sewed it in the wrong way. So I then have to...
So he can see his brain?
No, but...
Back of your head?
It's got... So I then take him to the Great Portland Street Hospital a few days later, and then it cost me $8,000 to get his eye sorted.
Okay,
And that was me managing.
I've got a quick eye story,
But how did his eye end up hanging out in the first place?
No, because he... Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you that. He was a self-harmer.
Oh, was that?
So Carol...
His eye out?
So he was headbutting... He was headbutting the sink.
Quick story, right? My granddad had a glass eye, right? War story, glass eye. Now, as a little kid, I used to stand in the bathroom, right, and watch him stick this metal thing in his eye, right, flick it out to get his glass eye out and put it in a box.
With his teeth.
So one day, I decide, and I'm only dead little, I decide, I'm going in. So I go in, right, get my granddad's eye box out, get his finger out that flicks his eye out, stick it at the back of my fucking eye and flick that fucking thing out. The next thing, I don't remember what went on probably, but I'm at the hospital and I'm having my eye put back in, but I was about 4, so I don't remember it, but yeah, I've seen around corners.
So run that back again. So you actually flicked your own eye out?
Yeah, we one of them things that you flick your eye out
That's
with.
an insane story.
And it's quite easy. I mean, if I could do it at fucking 4 years old, you know what I mean? And then man was screaming but trying to keep calm.
Could you still see, though? Could you remember saying?
Right, here's a mad thing. I can't really remember, but I'm sure that when it was out on the stringy bit, I could see.
Yeah, that's mad, that, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's still attached.
Carol really did lose his eye. I mean, it was like it was really touch and go. I think they when we went to that Brecon hospital, they were like, he's going to lose his eye. Go to Hereford now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's lucky then.
Yeah. I think the reason this will work is that you've known each other for 40 years. You know that you love each other. You know, and sounds a bit weird.
Well, it's a sexless marriage, really, I would say.
And it just what it is. It's like, you know, it's like you've got Joanne, your wife, and you've got Bez, your pal. Do you know what I mean? And it works. Do you know what I mean?
If you like what you see,
Subscribe.
subscribe and what?
Like.
Subscribe and like.
Sounds a bit weird. Me looking at him saying,
Well, the Mondays actually didn't work because, again, you know, we started off as this bunch of pals, little crew, right? Who, you know, to me and him, it was all for one for all, D'Artagnan and everything, right? And as it started going along, when the egos come into it, and we're only doing our job in that band, right? Me and him. And then when it all starts, and the jealousy starts and everything else, you know, I mean, you know, we had one bad album review. Out of the 3 albums that came before that, where the press loved us and everything else, we got one bad album review, right? Nothing to do with our decision to make that album, but the rest of the band, that affected them and split up the band.
and now we get to Uncle Dysfunctional coming out, the one after. That's a good album.
Yeah, good album.
It's a good album. Yeah, you know, I mean, we've got some good production on it, and, you know, great producer. On that. I mean, this is 2006.
Because this was you done that record with a new band. It was you, Bez and Gaz, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then the record company went bankrupt, and now
Which had nothing to do with us.
I know it didn't. And then he said to me the other day.
I mean, even back in, you know, all that bullshit about Factory going bankrupt, right? And it was, let's put this into perspective, right? That last album that we did cost less than £20,000 to make, right? What happened with Factory at the time was, because they'd had success with us, and we was bankrolling them, right? And they had success with us, lots of bands was being signed. Now, Factory never signed bands when we was on it, right? You didn't sign, you was just there, right? And you didn't get given advances. Once we got in the charts and had success, then advances and signing came in. And every one of these different bands was given 30 grand, 50 grand, you know, 100 grand, whatever. It was given these advances. So that money that was made by us, and New Order, because we was only two money-making bands, and we'd had
don't forget the Doves, though. Their last band, a Factory band, they're still a real successful band.
Yeah, but their money hadn't come in. Their money hadn't come in, right then.
That's what I'm
so
saying.
there wasn't even dough there come in from that. So what I'm saying is, us in New Order, right, was bankrolling everything else. And, you know, like I say, it didn't cost an awful lot of money, that last album. But what it was all the payroll going out to all these other bands where they expected, you know, signing money and everything else. You know, and then because we made a wrong decision in making that album there with a wrong producer, it wasn't a hit because it wasn't carrying the formula. That you don't change the formula when it's an hit. You just don't change that. Well, it changed through. We let the other members of the band do that. So really, it had nothing to do with that album busting Factory. Factory was going under because it laid out loads of dough on other things. If our album was have been a hit like the other ones was, I mean, and don't forget when Pills and Frills comes in to play, which, you know, went to number 1 or number 2, we saw, you know, when it come out and then it was selling. Well, then what happens? Bum starts to sell the same amount, and Squirrel and G-Man starts to sell that amount in sales, right? So that was right. Dough was there, but, you know, what else was going on, it was really not us that brought that under. It wasn't. It's just ridiculous to, I read these things and go, yeah, they brought fat shit. It's just bollocks,
No matter what you say, we'll always take the blame for that.
Well, of course, but,
sit there making all the excuses.
But, that's the truth of it, isn't it?
No,
That's
the truth.
That is the truth.
Yeah, but it don't sound as good as like.
No, that we brought it down and this and that.
That's a better story, that one.
That's a one, but,